Hello, welcome to Brass Tacks. It's been over 40 days since this war between Israel and Hamas began. Right now, much of the focus of the battlefield seems to be around the Shifa Hospital, which is the biggest hospital in Gaza City. Israel says this is the de facto headquarters of Hamas, that Hamas has tens of hundreds of tunnel networks underneath the hospital, and the entire Hamas leadership is working from underneath that hospital. On the other hand, the Palestinians are saying that that's not the case. This is the biggest hospital. Not only is it treating patients who are in need of critical care, it is also taking care of prematurely born babies, pregnant women, that it is now, in the last month or so, become a big refugee camp for those who are fleeing the war and do not know where to go. What are the chances that Israel might actually go ahead and strike the hospital? There are firefights reportedly already taking place inside the compound. And beyond the current round of fighting, where does this story head? What happens to the day after this war is over? And what is the military objective that Israel has outlined? Is it achievable or not? And militarily, even if it achieves it, what happens diplomatically? What happens domestically? These are questions that we will be putting to A.V. Hyman. He's an Israeli government spokesperson, somebody who is considered very close to the incumbent leadership there of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you very much, Mr. Hyman, for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Let me start off by asking you about the current situation of the war. Much of the focus seems to be around the Shifa Hospital. What is it that you can share with our viewers as to what is the current status there? What is the intended operation? Because clearly there's a lot of pressure on Israel. In the international community, the United States are all saying that attacking a hospital would go against the Geneva Conventions. It would go against the rules of war. Can you tell us what is the focus of the Israeli government, particularly when it comes to the fighting around this hospital?
Firstly, let me thank you very much for having me on. And I want to just say to the people of India, thank you for your continued support, both on a government level and on a people-to-people level. We see your support, we feel your support, and we appreciate your support. We know that India has faced terror in the same way that Israel faces terror, and we thank you for your steadfast support. As far as what's going on today on the ground, it's an ongoing situation, so I can't speak to specifics. What I can tell you is the Shifa Hospital is home to Hamas's control and command center. Deep underground, Hamas built their command and control center. There, they have planned, they have initiated, and they have moved forward with the war as we see it. Over 10,000 rockets have been fired at Israel. We saw what happened on October 7th, the massacre, when their people plowed through our borders, going house to house, looking for Jews to killing everyone in their path. They slit the throats of babies. They beheaded babies. They riddled babies' cribs with bullets. And now they are cynically saying to the world that we are coming after their hospitals, those same hospitals in which they have embedded their military operation. So in the Shifa Hospital, we entered this morning. In accordance with international law, we informed the authorities at the hospital that we were coming in. We went into a very specific area. We did encounter fire from Hamas terrorists there. We took out a number of Hamas terrorists. We have found weapons caches, definitive proof that these people are doing everything in their power to break all laws of war, fighting from within a hospital, using their own civilians as human shields. This is a double war crime of shooting at civilians from civilians. We will not allow Hamas to behead our babies, and we will not allow Hamas to cynically use their babies as a political ploy on the altar of ISIS.
Mr. Hyman, you have seen the comments that have come from the international community, from the United Nations Secretary General. You've seen even President Biden's comments saying that he doesn't expect hospital wards to become theaters of firefights. What is Israel doing? What are the precautions you are taking to try and avoid mass casualties of civilians who are holed up inside that hospital, or patients who are in need of critical care?
So like I said, this is a very surgical action that we took in a very specific part of the hospital. We need to deal with the terror threat emanating from that hospital. Yesterday, we took the international media to one of your partner stations, CNN in America, broadcast the Al-Rantisi Hospital, a children's hospital that had a network of tunnels underground where we found explosive belts, suicide belts, weapons, caches of weapons. But more concerning was a room there where it would appear our hostages had been held. But not only men and women, because we know that they have 239 Israelis and over 30 infants. What we found there will shake the heart of any father or mother watching.
Okay.
We found an open packet of nappies that had been used for a baby, we assume a hostage. We found multiple babies' bottles that seemed to have been tossed on their way out of that room. And we saw clear evidence of chairs with ropes around them where they appear to have held hostages. So again, this is a crime against humanity. Not only taking hostages, not only taking children, infants, babies, a baby of 9 months old, but holding those hostages under a children's hospital. This is the brutal enemy that we're up against. We will not stop until we dismantle Hamas, we dismantle their military operation, we dismantle their governance of Gaza, and we free Gaza from Hamas. That is the mission.
Talking about those hostages, there are still over 200 of them who are in the custody of Hamas, and there were reports just a few days ago that there were negotiations going on. They had agreed to release some of the hostages, a majority of them women and children, in lieu of some kind of a pause, some kind of a temporary ceasefire, if you will. What light can you shed on that?
Well, I need to differentiate between two things. The first thing is the term ceasefire. My Prime Minister has made it very clear that a ceasefire at this point in the war would be surrender, would enable Hamas to rearm, to move around, to prepare and plan the next stage. And what is the next stage? Well, we only need to listen to Hamas themselves. They have said in public interviews that they will gladly do October 7th again, and again. We will not allow that to happen. So we are moving forward with the operation to dismantle Hamas.
What happens after that? Militarily, you might be able to dismantle Hamas, but can you dismantle them, A, ideologically, and B, what takes the place of that vacuum? What takes the place of Hamas? Has this been thought through?
Well, the day after Hamas, and we hope that that day will come sooner rather than later. The day after Hamas, Gaza will look very different. It'll be fully demilitarized. It'll be fully de-radicalized. Israel will have to retain security control, as my Prime Minister has said. However, the civilian rule over there, that will have to be decided. What we know is two things. Hamas will no longer be in charge of the Gaza Strip because there will be no Hamas. And the Palestinian Authority has proven over history that they cannot be in charge of the Gaza Strip. Not as bad as the way that they're holding our people hostage, but it is not a free place to live. They could have created the Miami of the Middle East. Instead, they created one of the world's largest, if not the world's largest, underground terror bases that they use to attack our civilians, to kill, to maim men, women, and children. We cannot allow an ISIS-like organization on our southern border. But we will deal with Hamas, ISIS, in the same way that the free world dealt with ISIS in Afghanistan and Iraq.
What exactly do you mean by that Israel will have security control of the Gaza Strip? Prime Minister Netanyahu mentioned that in some of his interviews recently as well, but the United States has made it very clear that it does not intend Israel to be an occupying force. When you say security control, does that necessarily mean Israeli troops in Gaza once this war is over?
So I appreciate the question, but it's a little bit like asking the particulars of the Marshall Plan before D-Day. We haven't got to that day yet. And when that day comes, there's plenty of very, very smart people in Israel that'll work out the exact details. One thing we know for sure is we will never again allow those savages to cross over our borders and slaughter our children. We will never again allow a scenario like that of yesterday when missiles rained down from Gaza on Tel Aviv. There is an Israeli in hospital today in critical condition from shrapnel that fell on a missile in Tel Aviv yesterday. I myself had to run for cover in Tel Aviv yesterday. We cannot allow that situation to continue, and thus Israel will have to have security control. We will work out the details when we get there.
What about the civilian control? You're saying Hamas clearly, in your view, will not exist or will cease to exist. That's the stated objective of this operation. You think Palestinian Authority is incapable of ruling Gaza from past evidence. Something has to take its place. What may that be?
I will leave that to the Palestinian people. Like I said, we will need to look at the whole situation differently, because we've seen what the Palestinian Authority brought us. It brings us the pay-for-slay policy, where the more Jews you kill, the more money you get in a lifetime pension for your family. We see the education system in the Palestinian Authority, which raises their children to hate our children. We want peace. We seek peace. We have tried to make peace multiple times. We gave them Gaza on a silver platter, and we got missiles in response.
Are you also envisaging two things? One, some kind of an international peacekeeping force once this operation is over. And two, are you envisaging the northern part of Gaza, which is where the Israeli Defense Forces currently are, as some kind of a buffer land or buffer zone once this operation is concluded?
My Prime Minister has made it clear, and I'll make it clear again, that Israel will need to retain security control for the safety of our men, women, and children.
But what does that mean? Does that mean a buffer zone? Does that mean an international peacekeeping force? What does that exactly entail?
Again, what did the Marshall Plan look like before D-Day? I can't answer those questions directly.
All right.
Because I don't know the answers.
And what would you say to the international community? You're seeing protests against Israel in much of the Western world, in London, in Paris, in New York. They're saying this is a disproportionate response. Israel had the moral high ground in the aftermath of the October 7 terror attacks. How worried are you that that moral high ground might be slipping?
Well, let me say very clearly that if you were with us when we were the victim, be with us when we are the victor. We look at these protests in a very worrying manner. When we see people marching through the streets of London and elsewhere around the world, chanting things like, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." Free of what? Free of Jews. That is a call for policide, the eradication of a nation state, the one and only Jewish state. It is a call for genocide, for the genocide of my people, the Jewish people in Israel. But I'll go one further than that, because people need to understand what they're marching for and what they're marching with. The Hamas Charter is very, very clear. First, they will eradicate the state of Israel, and then they will go after Jews everywhere. So when people are going to march supposedly for pro-peace, pro the Palestinian people, they need to understand that you can't be marching in support of an ISIS-like organization, in support of genocide of the Jewish people. We say never again. Never again is now.
And one final word before I let you go. So does this mean at the end of this war, and perhaps because of the attack that spawned this war, the two-state solution is now dead?
Well, we'll see what happens when we get there. But from what we've seen from Gaza, a scenario where the Palestinians were just yards away, they could run through the borders and butcher our people. When you talk about Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, which towers over Tel Aviv and 70% of our population, I'll leave you to answer those questions. Again, I don't know what the future will bring. What I know is that our mission is to dismantle Hamas, is to dismantle their military and governance over Gaza, to free the people of Gaza, and to bring home those 239 Israeli hostages. being held against all the laws of war. That is our mission, and that is what we will do.
All right, A.V. Hyman, thank you very much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Thank you.
Thank you very much.